pulls this gentleman up to the front of the class and does this muscle testing demonstration. And he's like, okay, what's your name? And let's just say his name was Chris,
Okay.
And so he has him say his name, Chris, and his arm is just like stays strong as he tests him. And he's like, okay, now, say that your name is Sally. And he says Sally, and his arm goes weak for a moment. And he's like, imagine if all of the doctors utilized this technology of just accessing the truth, like how much more progress we would see in health and well-being.
Wow.
And as I'm like sitting there, I'm like, I just had this knowing. I'm like, I'm going to do something with muscle testing. 3 weeks later, I met the granddaughter of this woman who co-founded this whole practice called Kalos that's based in a 10 priority system for muscle testing. And she's a natural doctor.
There you go.
So,
You're everywhere you need to be. I love it.
uh-huh.
For you to just share a little bit about what you do to start.
Yeah. What I do. So right now, what I'm doing is I'm working with a lot of individual clients. Currently working on some group programs as far as developing those and some longer programs. The biggest thing that I do is I help people get in touch with their truth resonance so that they're able to operate in their optimal well-being. And so what does that mean? What I was trained in and what it looks like to me, it's almost like when everything is in alignment and we are at our optimal well-being, if we get a cut, it heals easily, right? So it allows the body's innate wisdom to do what it was designed to do. So we're not just honoring our body, we're here to honor our soul's purpose, right? And our whatever that optimal level of well-being looks like in our experience here.
As someone who's a visual learner, as I'm listening to you, I'm trying to imagine, like, what would a session look like with you? Like, do people sit down in a chair, or do you guys meditate together? What does that look like?
Well, so a lot of times, like I have somebody come in and I have them share their intentions with me. I have them fill out like a history form before just to bring forward any like ancestral information too that might be relevant. And I'll go into muscle testing with them. So for example, say somebody wants to be headache free. I'll test their body to see if it resonates with optimal well-being. And so usually there's a few things that might come up even just during optimal well-being. And I make sure that's the thing. If they have something more chronic, I'll test them to find out if they're in alignment with actually thinking they want to heal and feeling they want to heal. So this is actually something that I'm going to be doing at the retreat in October, which is teaching everyone how to do their own think, feel alignment. I mean, that's when we become the vibration of the thing that we're wanting or that
Lining
we're
up
asking for.
the mind with the heart intention, right? Okay.
Yeah, is getting that in alignment. And so if we think we want to heal, but we don't feel we do,
Yeah.
right? We're going to create different blocks for that, or we're going to have all these different excuses of, why this couldn't happen. I have a list of organs in the body. So I'll go through and I test all of the organs in the body. I'll find out where in their body is holding too much energy and where in their body isn't getting enough. And then based on that, I'll do some acupressure to assist in balancing out the flow. So it's like if, what I see really commonly is either high kidneys, which is I love being alive, or I see a high pancreas, which is if I don't worry, I'll die. Or the positive is I relax and do my best. Like I said, I'll find out where that is. And once I find that pressure point, it's really fascinating. I'll go back and I'll test all the organs and they'll be strong again.
Wow. So it's almost like you go in and you're able, because like I know different parts of the body hold memory. And so like you're saying with the pancreas, or like feeling the pressure to, you know, maintain life, or feeling like you have to be in a nervous state to be in resonance or to live life. And like you're almost able to go in, nail down what is weak, and
Yeah.
reattune.
I find where the perpetration is at,
Mm.
right? Which is the thing that isn't actually true about our being that
Wow.
we've been holding, and allowing it to either be released or to transform. Our memory isn't just like in the body either.
Hmm.
So, I mean, our brain sends information throughout our entire system. Like I've noticed some people will store things just in their field,
Their energy field. Yep.
in their field. And it's like on a physical level, let's say somebody has a tumor,
Mm-hmm.
right? A lot of times with a tumor, the body will store protein it was unable to digest. And it's typically coupled with other stored emotional traits like suppressed anger
Mm.
or overwhelm. And so our body our body is so brilliant in that way, where it likes to put things away when it's like I'm a little too overwhelmed to deal with this right now, but so I'm just going to stash this here and we're going to deal with it when it's safe to. The really cool thing is there's a ton of talk about the nervous system now,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which we have two nervous systems. We have our parasympathetic, which is our survival, our fight, flight, fight, paralysis. They say fawning now is one of them, which is the
Yeah.
people pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
Because if people don't feel safe to voice their truth, then they'll just go into pleasing.
Yep.
And then there's the sympathetic nervous system, which is our state of relaxation, our state of restoration. It's the state that we're actually able to heal in. What I've realized is that different cells in the body will hold the memory of a different state, or one
Wow.
of those nervous system states. Because
Mhm.
at the same time, like on a main scale, right, they both can't operate at the same time.
Right.
But on a cellular level, right, like these cells might believe there's still fight happening. That's why
Yeah.
it's like, well, I can't deal with this right now.
Mm. Yep.
So
It's like
it's
programming.
exactly, this is
Yeah.
a biocomputer, right? So it's just about getting into what decision was made,
Mm-hmm.
and releasing that energy so then the body can address it.
It's
It's like,
powerful.
oh, yeah, it is
Uh,
really powerful.
I love how much science is in this too. One question that pops up immediately as I'm listening to this is, because it sounds like, and from what I know about you, and just like from my time, just like getting to know you, I feel like you're a very safe person for people to untangle some of these things with. And I know safety is important for the nervous system to release limiting beliefs. What are some of the symptoms you've seen be cleared in your sessions, or what were some of the amazing things that you saw as a result of going through this process?
That's a great question. I have had one of my longer clients, I've been working with her the last 3 years on addressing her, I should say, releasing her Crohn's disease.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really powerful month by month seeing less and less symptoms with somebody, and on to the degree where like I have to follow up with her now to be like, hey, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Do you want to come in just to check,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
maintain and make sure everything's in balance.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been really cool.
That's major Crohn's disease.
Yeah, I saw one that she came to me once, well, just one session, and she had been experiencing dyslexia her
Mm-hmm.
entire life. It was like the one thing that was holding her back from excelling in the entertainment career and becoming a director.
What?
And I did one session with her, and what happened was we went back to the age, her being 4 years old and making a decision that she was just different than everybody else.
Uh,
We
whoa.
cleared it up, and within 3 months, she was directing. And since then, she's directed like 6 different films.
You were time traveling with people.
Yeah. So my mentors, the founders of spiritual psychology, Ron and Mary Holnick, they used to say all the time, healing is the application of loving to the places inside of us that hurt.
Mm,
And it's so powerful and so true how much our, um, I want to say emotional body plays a role in our experience, but what creates the emotional body is the choices we make.
yeah.
Yeah, it's so rewarding going, like, helping somebody go back to a choice they made, and then they see it, from the higher space they're in now, and
Yeah.
they're like, oh, that was so silly. Like, I love myself so much,
Right.
and I'm so grateful that I learned this.
Wow. What a what a gift to be able to walk with people into those spaces and clear, help them clear. And it sounds like you also teach people how to do that on their own too. And I know you're planning to do that at this upcoming retreat in October in Mt.Shasta. I want to
Yes.
hear a little bit about this retreat coming up. Kind of like if we were to tune in to those dates, what what are you hoping for? What do you hope to see, and what are you excited about for it?
Hmm. What I am feeling into the most is the the lasting change that happens every time I go to Shasta
Mm-hmm.
is just profoundly incredible. And everyone that joins. As a facilitator, I in the last 2.5 years, I've done over 10 retreats there.
Wow.
And it has really been a calling of mine to go there, which is so fascinating because 10 years ago was the first time I had heard of Mount Shasta, and I just had this knowing,
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, I'll be there, I'll be going there someday soon. And then as soon as I had the opportunity, again, it was just this knowing. I'm like, oh, that's where I'm going to do a retreat. There is just one, it's just the energy of Mount Shasta. As many people probably have heard, Mount Shasta is known as the root chakra of the planet. And so moving into a vortex that is of that magnitude is quite an incredible experience. And it can be challenging too for people that are traveling to the mountain. So I would just want to preface that, things might not go according to plan, to your plan, but they're definitely part of the plan.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times too, when people will book their retreat, they'll already start learning from the mountain before they even get there.
They tune in, yeah, because their intentions. Oh,
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm incredibly grateful to be able to hold one of these experiences. The amount of healing that happens and release that happens is just incredible to witness, and the information that people get while they're there. I feel like it shows from my experience. It's about everybody that comes a whole new level of their own gifts and their own whatever their next steps are. It's like they get that clarity,
yeah.
and it's grounded in that root chakra. I think a lot of times, with just from what I've heard and maybe experienced at other retreats, it's more upper chakra
Mm-hmm.
related, but
Mm-hmm.
this is like a full body, full chakra, like grounding in, implementing.
Mm-hmm.
People leave changed in the best ways.
Yeah. I've heard that. I've never been. I've always been told I should go or I would love it, and it feels like such a gift to be invited by you to come be a part of this. And I'm I feel like every time I think about it, I get goosebumps, and just like, oh, like what is gonna happen there, and like knowing that it's part of the root chakra too, like in the work that I do with clients, we look at the root chakra as like a manifestation center. And you were talking about how it's like, the vortex energy can go all the way through to that center in us. And I'm just like, I'm so excited to see how you lead this group with this energy. And I think one of the other things I wanted to ask you was what led you to invite Myke and I to come assist you at this retreat?
I I just had this sense that I needed to ask you guys when you were coming to Shasta because I think I had talked to Myke around 2 years ago
Uh-huh.
when you were doing the van or the bus. You guys, and he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna travel around." And I think around that time I had started doing retreats in Shasta.
Whoa.
And I remember, I think I briefly asked him like how if he had been or anything like that. And so I don't know.
You
two
just
years Spirit was just like, hey, find out when they're going.
That's so cool.
Um, and then he was like, oh yeah, in the fall. And so yeah. And then Spirit was like, hey, you need to do a fall retreat. It just was so divinely orchestrated. The woman that's been helping me as a chef for all of the last retreats, she just wasn't fully available for these dates. And it
Wild.
I'm like, okay, that's okay. Whatever's meant to be is gonna come forward and I'm all for it.
Yeah, and I don't think you knew that like I'd worked as a whole food, coach and like chef for a long
No.
time and I'm like I'm so excited to serve in that way because like to me food is it can be medicine and it can be really, it can support the work that you're doing with people and I'm already getting goosebumps just talking about it and thinking about it, but it just yeah, like you said it all feels like it's lining up like it's meant to happen. Curious about that. And I want to take that question and lead it into kind of like when did you begin to experience your gifts? Because it sounds like as a young child, you were tuned in and maybe you were taught through Christianity. And I grew up Christian as well and connected with the Holy Spirit and really close, like felt like, just like the presence and like the divine presence within myself as a kid. And it sounds like maybe you had some supernatural experiences growing up. I'd love to open that door and hear a little bit about your experience with that.
Definitely. Yeah, I definitely remember having experiences when I was younger, especially with just seeing other beings that, weren't here. As a kid, I was pretty quiet, so it wasn't something I ever talked to anybody about,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And it wasn't until I was 18, was I 18? Maybe around 19,
Mm-hmm.
did I realize that I was actually intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
Most of my life, I just thought, like, I just had this sense of knowing of a lot of things. And I thought it was common sense. And I was pretty witty and probably not as kind maybe to other people.
You're
And
like,
I later
hello.
realized that I'm like, wow, I actually am more gifted. This is a gift that I'm being shown, and maybe I shouldn't be so hard on other people for not seeing these things.
Wow. Whoa. So like you would almost like it's almost like the spirit realm is so vivid for you that it's almost like and it sounds like around the age of 18 you were aware that other people weren't tuned into that realm.
Yeah. Yeah, and it really started once my grandmother passed because she started showing up all the time.
Yeah.
And I would smell her perfume and I would hear her laugh and
Oh.
I got this message. I got a lot of messages from her
Mhm.
and I couldn't make this stuff up, you know?
Yeah.
And then I realized too, as I was studying this holistic practice and going through my master's program, how, in a room full of 230 people that were also studying spiritual psychology, and I was at the top of my class, in my, and it just, it was natural to me.
Yeah, it was
Like,
easy.
okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, definitely.
Yeah.
Um, because I love it. And then also it just made sense to me
Hmm.
in these ways. And then, trying to have conversations with other people about what spiritual psychology is, they're like, huh, well, good for you, you know?
Brush past it. Yeah.
Yeah, just right over their head. And I'm like, okay, so what am I supposed to do with this? Because like there was a time in my life I felt extremely alienated,
Mm.
um, in that way of just who do I even talk to about
Yeah.
these things that really light me up?
I think you'll relate to this. When I was in high school, I was having a lot of prophetic dreams and experiencing like, I guess like an opening, a psychic opening. And
Hmm.
I had it as a kid. Like I was really in tune with my gifts as a kid. And then, you kind of get conditioned through teachers or through family members or through, friends or whatnot whenever you go to share those things, which it sounds like you've had those kind of experiences too. I went to like the pastor of my family's church at the time and told him, like, shared some of the dreams with him. And he encouraged me to go find other teachers and like explore outside the church. And I thought that was, I really appreciate him for that because I don't think most pastors would handle a situation like that way. But
That's amazing.
yeah, I don't know. Like, because you mentioned the age 18. Was there a teacher? Was there a book you read or something that kind of made you realize, like, oh, this is my service. Like, this is what I'm here to do?
There was one book particularly. The one week I was reading this book, I was with my aunt, and the book was called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle.
Yes.
And I read it within 5 days, and I was just like, this is the psychology I'm looking for. Not that I
Mm,
believe that the ego needed to die.
right.
There was just there was a lot in the book that really spoke to me.
Mm,
And so, I mean, I've always been a huge encourager too for people to like take what resonates and just
mhm.
like leave the rest.
Yep.
And so I was talking to my aunt about it, and she, like, her eyes were just kind of glazed over a little bit. She's like, you know who you need to talk to about this is your Aunt Cheryl. And I'm like, okay, I just wanted to talk to you about it,
Yeah,
really.
you're the person it came to.
And within a month, she was out to lunch with my Aunt Cheryl, and they called me, and she's like, "You
Oh,
haven't talked to her yet." She's like, "I told you you need to talk to her." And she goes, "Here," and she
he
hands her the
followed up.
phone. Yeah, she hands her the phone, and she's like, "Tawni, you need to apply for the spiritual psychology program like right now." She's like,
Oh,
"Class starts Friday, and if you don't get in on Friday, you'll have to wait a whole year." And I was like, she's like, "I'll write your letter of recommendation," and this like hangs up, and I'm like, okay.
well, if that's not a
So
sign, I don't know what is, Like,
yeah.
dang. Wow. So that was like you were just kind of like it happened instantly almost that you
It
said.
happened pretty quickly. I feel like I want to share how I got to this place for it to make a little bit more sense.
Yeah, please do.
I did a project in my senior year of high school that was around studying hallucinogens,
Mm-hmm.
which I was never interested in drugs in that realm. But what I thought so fascinating of it all was just the level of consciousness
Mm-hmm.
that happens. And something was just clicking for me around it. And I
Mm,
had grown up in Christianity. I knew the story of Jesus very well. I believed in true healing. And
yeah.
so I feel like that's just been something I've been seeking since I was young. I mean, I remember being 4 and just praying for wisdom
Mm-hmm.
because this world seems very complicated to so many degrees.
Yeah.
And I just wanted that clarity of like, how do I simplify this life experience
Wow.
in the most graceful, joyful way that
Mm,
it's not just like enjoyable, but it's full of meaning.
mm,
And so I got my undergrad in psychology, and at that time, I just felt like that wasn't it. That wasn't it. That wasn't the healing
Yeah.
that I knew was available.
Yeah, it's
And
almost like when you, I'm guessing when you got into the studies and you began to see like the processes that are provided for people, even in healthcare, you're probably like, oh my gosh, we could go so far beyond this.
yeah, yeah. And I around the same time, I had witnessed my grandmother and my mother's best friend transition from cancer,
Mm,
and what that process was like, as an observer, listening to what the doctors had to say to them, watching them buy into exactly what they were saying to them, and really the ultimate outcome of that experience for them just didn't seem very graceful. And
mm,
I know that it was there to show me these things.
mhm.
And so I, in pursuit, also realized a lot of what I was learning with psychology was really just in support of these pharmaceutical companies, and not really so much in the tools and the actually shifting of something so that you don't need to take something
Yes.
anymore. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, that's not a permanent solution. It's temporary. If now I'm dependent on taking a pill the rest of my life, like that's not healing,
Yep.
you know?
Oh yeah.
So in that's when I got into doing background work as an extra right out of college, because I was like, I have to figure this out.
Yeah.
I need to see where I'm going. And I mean, my faith has been a big part of that. So I was praying a lot, just talking to God as much as possible. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? Because this isn't enjoyable. I'm not enjoying what I've learned so far.
Yeah.
And yeah, after like it was about a year and a half, I just gave myself the freedom and the permission to read anything I was called to read, learn whatever book I was drawn to, studying intuition, psychic ability, ESP, getting into those things.
Yeah. And the science
I
behind it too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the science behind it all it's there. And I was led right into a spiritual psychology program. And so what really clicked for me is that back during the Christian Reformation, there was kind of this artificial split of the human, culturally and socially.
Mhm.
So what they did was they left the study of the body to physicians, the
Mhm.
study of the mind and behavior to psychologists, and the study of the soul to theologians. And so, right. So it became difficult for people to really see the bigger picture and to understand who they are and
Mhm.
what actually their body vessel is capable of. And so in that, my when I talk about having a holistic practice, it's about incorporating the body as the whole
Yes.
and addressing all of those things, because nothing is really quite what it seems to be, especially on a physical level. I think most of the physical things that come up in session, really only equate to like 5 to 10% of what's actually going on with somebody.
Mhm.
And so if somebody's experiencing symptoms, what I do to help them is I help them identify, at what point did these things go out electric, at what point did you experience an electrical weakness here? And
Mhm.
we find out when that happened.
Mhm.
And typically with all of those things, there's one common thing, which is a decision that was made, right?
Mhm.
Which
Mhm.
is so beautiful, because in so many of the spiritual religions and practices, right, we have free will and our ability to choose. And so when we make a decision about, oh, this is what's gonna exist now, or this is just how things are,
Mhm.
in ways we're defining our reality. And
Right.
so we get to decide what that looks like, and we'll create our own symptoms by putting limiting beliefs in our system.
Mm,
Just because maybe we had an experience that we didn't fully understand. And that's what I love so much that's going on in the spiritual community now is it's so much is about embracing the unknown, right? And like being uncomfortable or being as comfortable as possible in the unknown,
hmm.
being comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So to get to the truth and not make judgments and these decisions that really aren't going to be serving long term.
Hmm. Wow. So it sounds like you help people arrive at their decision making. You help people arrive at like who they are now, past from past events and who they can become based on the truth of like what is maybe catching them or what they're that maybe the limits they're even setting up for themselves.
Yeah. I
Wow.
guess like in a shorter version, it's like I help people take full responsibility and ownership of their physical health and experience.
Because like I have a lot of people who tune into what I share online because they've gone through a psychic awakening or they want to learn how to utilize their gifts better. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about how you experience other realms. Like, how does that? Because, like, for example, like when I see a spirit or I see an entity, I almost see them like not like a visual character, but I can tune in and know what the story is behind, and I can engage and learn from that. It's almost like a I see like a you know the Kool-Aid packets, like the commercials with the guys that are like they're like metallic looking.
Okay. Yeah.
That's how they appear to me, or they appear as orbs.
Hmm.
So I'm curious what your experience looks like when your gifts are tuning into something.
Yeah. Um, I have quite a range of, I've had quite a range of experiences.
Yeah.
I would say either I'll hear something, I
Yeah.
hear auditory voices, I'll see shadows like out of the corner of my eye, like I'll
Hmm.
get flashes of light.
Hmm.
I'll either like really visually see them like in my mind's eye, my third eye. I'll see a lot of times things will show up in photos for me
Hmm.
too. Like I'll just get this like message to like, hey, take a photo right now.
Hmm.
And something wants to reveal itself to me, and then like I'll have a conversation with whatever that is in the
Yeah.
photo.
Yeah.
I've had, I've had like things touch me, tap
Hmm.
me. Um, when I'm working with clients,
Hmm.
I have I have a lot of in like physical intuition
Hmm.
gifts. So like if
Yeah.
somebody's experiencing something and I might start experiencing it, and
Yeah.
I'll know, then I know exactly like what's going on with them.
Mm.
And that was something that I had grown up with, but I didn't understand that I was feeling other people's stuff a lot of the time. So
Mm.
when especially when it came to like eating food, like I preferred like stillness and that might also play into some of the human design
Yes.
stuff as well.
Yes. Yeah.
But because of those intuitive gifts and
Hmm.
that awareness, I didn't realize like how important it was to also just recognize, you know, oh, what I'm feeling isn't mine,
Right.
and
Yeah.
like giving it back.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Whether it's a physical or an emotional thing, I try. I've gotten really good at my boundaries now when it comes to processing things with people, and just like, hey, that's probably better we talk about this like in a session.
Yeah. Yes.
So
Powerful.
yeah.
It's so good to hear because like I think a lot of people because like I believe that we can have all the clairs. Like I believe that we can experience, all of them turned on essentially. And I think a lot of people are beginning to experience those things or they have for a long time and maybe shut them down, through conditioning. But it's really powerful to hear the work you do as well as how you experience it from your end as the practitioner. But I'd love for you to share a little bit about what it was like learning your human design and beginning to read about maybe some of the intuitive gifts you do have, or how your energy flows through your system. What was that like for you discovering it?
Um, the first word that comes to my mind is just validating.
Yeah.
I feel like everything I was reading, I had only recently, I think the last year, really started getting into it. And I bought the book years ago and it had been sitting on my bookshelf.
Yeah.
And then I got the call like, hey, you need to check into this. And also kind of looking into working dynamics and like people I'm working with. And
Mm.
I had an experience of working with somebody and then once seeing their human design, just being like, this is why things are so frustrating for me and they don't feel like they're in alignment.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really quite a beautiful awareness to have. It
Yeah.
wasn't an easy relationship to like let go of or release necessarily, but it was so necessary.
Wow.
And I've heard that that's a really common thing for people. One thing I find really exciting about human design is that 70% of the population are generators.
Yeah.
So that means that 70% are governed by a yes or a no
So
or a
simple. Yeah.
right,
Yes.
which is the root of muscle testing and like truth resonance.
There you
So
go.
it's it's so beautiful, right? As I feel like the world is ready for more of this stuff, and I'm working on putting together my first training. It'll actually be in January 2025, the end of January. So I feel really called to teach people the practice that I know
Mm.
because I just see more practitioners using it, and then also having a home guide for people to have in their home
Mhm.
when things are coming up. Like, okay, what is my body telling me? What does it need?
Yeah.
Because one thing too is like when all of these spiritual things get activated, what I've noticed is people kind of tend to forget that their physical body has needs as well.
Right.
And so it's really important to take all the parts into accountability.
The whole, yeah, like you're saying, the
The
whole
whole,
body. Yeah.
yeah, we can't forget about the physical. I think a lot of people want to forget about the physical,
Mhm.
especially when the spiritual just like really opens, because then
Mhm.
it's like, oh, light speed,
Mhm.
like all of this upper area can just go super fast. But it's like we want the body to also keep up and maintain
Mhm.
what we're bringing into it.
Instrument.
So
Yeah.
just for that grace and ease and to thrive,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. I feel like that's kind of been my life's work, is to help people tap into the lower chakras. You've seen my chart. Um,
Yes.
yeah,
It's
and helping
beautiful.
them like get moving and like
Hmm.
take this up here and move it into the to
And
the.
that's so necessary. And like with what you do with food,
Mhm.
now, just from what I've seen, like people really don't understand how to eat.
No, they
And
don't.
then also the types of foods that, at least here in America, that has been called food. It people,
Always,
it's a whole relearning that's happening on the
yeah.
planet. Mm.
I'm like, I feel like you had mentioned earlier with Mike on the call that you've been anticipating this time coming, this like almost like I'd call it like a revival of like the new earth essentially. It's just like we're coming into this age where our generation's ready to make the shifts. We're ready to start the new systems, and we're beginning that process. And I think as a way to like close this call, I'd love to hear some of the things that you're anticipating coming up like in the next 2 years. Like you've talked about used to journal and like received a lot of words about 2024, that you were going to host retreats, that you were going to be, doing your service, like lit up so much. And I don't know, I just kind of want to hear about what you've intuited coming up during this time.
It's really interesting. The word that I hear is grace. I
Hmm.
hear a lot of grace coming through as these things happen.
Hmm.
I hear more people are becoming more aware. And I almost, for me, it's almost like this second coming, right?
Hmm.
Of light consciousness in a way that is rooted and grounded into a way that humanity is like no longer projecting on each other,
Yeah.
but we're actually in it together,
Hmm.
And what I see is has been this like fight for energy, right? It's like this
Mm.
fight for energy, like we want more energy and more energy, more power. And when we actually stop seeing the energy and the power like outside of ourselves and
Hmm.
really start integrating it from inside, I just think things are going to look very different in very good ways. Yeah, I get the message all the time to just take one day at a time, to
Yeah.
just be present, right? In this present moment. And really at the root of my practice too, and even when I'm working with clients, if I'm working with myself, it's just all about bringing these parts back into the present moment.
Hmm.
It's not about getting on a higher timeline or
Yeah.
going like excelling someplace else. It's just how do I bring that energy here and now?
Hmm.
Because this is life. Like this moment right now is life.
Hmm.
There's nothing else like we need to
Creating
be
in the now.
concerned with.
Yeah.
Um,
Beautiful. Beautifully said. Um, I think the last question, and I realized I didn't ask this earlier, and I wanted to ask you, who is this upcoming retreat for? Like, when you imagine who would be drawn to this kind of retreat, what kind of person who would be looking for this? What would they be expecting?
I think that the person that this retreat is for is somebody that just is feeling called to align themselves with more of their truth. If they're seeking out their truth, maybe they have some questions about things and there's been some challenges in their life that maybe they've seen other people and like they haven't been able to make that change
Mm-hmm.
or get that clarity. I feel like this is for them.
Mm.
Also, anybody that has felt like they are the ones burying, bear, what am I saying? Holding the burden, right, of like their family generational
Mm.
karma or trauma.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
This would be a really powerful retreat for them as well.
Mm. Wow. I feel that all over my
Bearing
body.
the burden
Yep.
of their family karma or decisions. Yeah.
Mhm. Mm. Tawni,
So
thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit with me and talk and share your story and talk about the retreat. If people want to find you, if they want to sign up for the retreat, if they want to find out more about you, what you're doing, or even book a session with you, where could they do that?
my website is www.holisticsands.com. And my Instagram is at Tawni, Tawni, Sands, Sands. And then the retreat page, I have a retreat Instagram as well, which is Mt.Shasta Healing Retreats. And you can go on there. There's a website on the Instagram as well to book the retreat. You can send me a personal message. I love hearing from people and just having little conversations before too. You can book a session on my website and I have a link in my Instagram as well.
Great. I'll get those links and put them in the description below on the
Okay,
YouTube
perfect.
video for the podcast. Is there any closing thoughts you want to share or anything that bubbled up for you?
I just want to express my gratitude to you. Thank you so much for having me here today as a guest and for getting to share all of my experience and what I have to offer. I hope on some level, anybody that's listening, that maybe this brought some clarity to you and what some of the things you've been experiencing, and just know you're not alone. And that if you're interested in learning more of these techniques, give me a shout out and I would love to share more information with you.